I took a babysitting job for $500 cash. One night, easy money or so, I thought. But when the parents told me don't let the kid look into mirrors and never open the door no matter who knocks, I should have walked away. Because by midnight, I realized I wasn't babysitting a child. I was guarding something that only looked like one, and when the truth came out, I swore I'd never be the prey again. I would become the hunter. If you've ever taken a job because rent was due and learned the price wasn't dollars, it was you tap like, subscribe and stick with me. This isn't just a horror story. It's a revenge story. And I'm not the one who ends up in the dark. I didn't want to take the ad. I just come off a double at the coffee shop on Knee Broadway in Portland, knuckles blistered from mopping sticky floors, hair still smelling like burned milk even after my third shower. I'd lost my Tuesday and Friday shifts when a manager's nephew needed experience. My rent was due in 3 days, and my fridge held exactly half a jar of pickles, a dead lime, and yogurt that hissed when I opened it. I closed it like I'd sealed a tomb. I was lying on my 1,000-year-old sofa, doom scrolling, when I saw the listing wedged between a used headboard and someone's treadmill they swore worked with a little love. Looking for a responsible sitter. 1 night only. Good pay. Cash. Must follow instructions. No kid's age, no hours, no number. Just a burner Gmail. I almost swiped past. But the word cash grabbed my ankle like a hand from under the bed. I typed, "Hi, I'm Jenna, experienced with kids. What are the hours and rate?" I didn't expect a reply that night. It came within the hour. "Thank you for reaching out. The job is simple. Watch our son, Matthew, from 7 p.m. midnight. $500 cash. Please do not let him look into mirrors. Please do not answer the door if someone knocks and claims to be us. Address attached." I read it, blinked, read it again. "Do not let him look into mirrors. Not no screen time, not no sugar after 8. Mirrors. And don't answer the door if someone knocks and claims to be us." The laugh that came out of me sounded like it was practiced on a therapist's couch. I screenshotted the email and sent it to my best friend Tara. "May, tell me to say no." Tara. "Girl. That says horror movie opening in Helvetica." "Me. 500 cash." Tara. "Which mirror will you sell your soul in?" The rent reminder on my calendar chimed behind her text chain. It sounded like a gavel. "Me. I'll share my location the whole time." Tara. "If I see your dot stop moving for more than 10 minutes, I call 911 and your mom." May. "My mom's dead. Remember." Tara. "Then I'll call mine and she pray at you." Me. "Good. I'll take it." I told myself I was being dramatic. Maybe they were ultra-religious and had a superstition. Maybe the kid had some kind of disorder and mirrors triggered something. People have quirks. Quirks weren't monsters. The address was Cedar Ridge Hawthorne Lane. A cul-de-sac with no streetlights and more HOA rules than I had spoons in my drawer. The Uber driver pulled to the curb, engine idling like it didn't want to die here. The only house lit was at the end. 2 stories, shutters too perfect. A light the color of margarine smeared behind heavy curtains. The driver looked at me in the rear view. "You sure?" "No," I said, and smiled like that helped. "Babysitting." He didn't wait to watch me knock. Just sped off with the urgency of someone escaping weather. The door opened before I touched the bell. 2 people filled the frame like a stock photo had learned to breathe. The dad wore khakis and a polo in a shade that said, "I coach youth soccer and have opinions about mulch." The mom wore a pale cardigan, hair tucked behind one ear like she'd rehearsed it. Their smiles were not wrong, just practiced. As if they were remembering to be people. "We're so glad you could make it," she said, stepping aside to let me in. She paused, then smiled bigger. "I'm Natalie. This is Mark." Her hand was cool and dry, his was warm and dry. Someone had taught them how to shake hands. "It's nice to meet you," I said. "I'm Jenna." "The instructions in the email are the most important," Mark said, moving past my name like it hadn't been said. "Don't let him near mirrors. Don't answer the door." "I got that," I said, forcing a chuckle that immediately shamed itself. "Can I ask, why?" For a moment, Natalie's face flickered, like a screen with a bad connection. Then the smile returned. "Just follow them." We'll be back at midnight. 500 cash, as promised. And Matthew is in his room, she said. Already settled. Does he have allergies? Medications? A bedtime routine. The instructions are the most important, Mark repeated, brighter, like I hadn't heard him the first time. It was like talking to an automated system that offered the same 3 options no matter what button you pressed. They were halfway out the door before I could say have a good night. The deadbolt slid home on its own. I stood in the entryway, the smell of bleach pulsing against my tongue. The quiet pressed into my ears until my own breath sounded too loud. I took a tour to ground myself. The house was model home clean. Kitchen counters gleamed. No mail pile, no kid grime. No magnets or school photos on the fridge. The air had that slightly wrong humidity of a hotel room. No one had opened a window in for a month. Then I saw it. Every reflective surface had been removed or muzzled. The bathroom mirror was gone, screws shining like teeth in a gum. The TV wore a sheet like a ghost at a costume party. Picture frames that should have held glass had paper taped over them instead. The toaster was matte black plastic so dull it absorbed light. Even the microwave had a strip of painter's tape across its display. It was a house hiding from itself. I texted Tara a photo of the blank bathroom wall. Tara, oh cool, a murder. I stuffed my phone in my back pocket and climbed the stairs. The second floor felt warmer, like the air had been breathed more. There was a faint smell, child sweat and laundry that never fully dries. A door at the end of the hall was cracked, a slice of darkness thin as a closing eye. I knocked with 2 knuckles. Matthew, I'm Jenna. No answer. I pushed the door open. He sat cross-legged in the middle of his bed like he'd been placed there as a display. 8, maybe 9. Hair the color of an empty paper bag. Skin pale enough to bruise under light. His pajamas were gray. The kind of gray that doesn't occur to children. He didn't move when I stepped in. He just watched me with eyes that held more wakefulness than a kid should know. Hi, I said, standing a respectful distance from the bed like it might electricity. I'm your babysitter tonight. Silence. Then, do you know which ones are real? His voice was flat. Not robotic, not monotone. Just flat. Like he'd spent it weeks ago and hadn't gotten the refund. What do you mean? I asked, the back of my neck tightening like a drum. The people. He blinked slowly, as if he had to instruct himself to do it. Sometimes they're not them. Sometimes they're copies. A laugh leapt out of me like a frog and died mid-air. That's creepy. Where'd you hear that? He tilted his head, bird-like. From the other Matthew. I felt the cold before I recognized I was cold. The other Matthew? He lifted a finger and pointed at the window. The curtains hung thick, but a crack gaped where the rod didn't quite meet the wall. Beyond it was varying shades of black. He comes when the glass is open. I closed the curtains. I double-knotted them with my hands like you can tie away a concept. Do you like drawing? I asked. We can sit downstairs. I have crayons in my bag. He slid off the bed like a weight someone was tired of carrying. We went down together. He didn't reach for my hand, and I didn't offer. There are children you can coax into childness. He wasn't one of them. He watched me set out a coloring book like he was watching a ritual he didn't believe in. He colored the outline of a dog in broken green. At 8:30, the first knock came. 3 slow raps that carried through the house like coughs in a church. I froze mid-sip of water from a cup so clear it could steal a fingerprint. The instructions lit up in my head in neon. Do not answer the door. 3 more raps, louder, measured, the way someone knocks when they aren't asking permission. They're reminding you who has it. A man's voice, muffled through wood. Hey, it's us. We forgot something inside. The voice had the right pitch to be Mark, but the wrong texture. Like an audio file you've compressed too many times, it still says words, but the life's been chewed out. I stood, my hand nowhere near the knob. No, thanks, I heard myself say in the world's least effective tone of confidence. A creak behind me. I turned. Matthew stood halfway down the stairs, one hand on the rail, face angled toward the door the way plants find sun. That's not them, he whispered. The knocking stopped. The house pulled breath into its ribs, held it. Back to the couch, I said softly. He obeyed. I tried to turn the TV on for white noise and remembered it was shrouded. I pulled out my phone and put on a cooking show. A woman on YouTube cheerfully explained the proper way to debone a fish while the house debated our existence. 9:15. Footsteps in the hall upstairs. Heavy, adult, pacing a slow line back and forth, back and forth. I looked at the boy next to me to reassure myself, and there he was, knees up, green crayon breaking at the tip. 9:47. The TV flickered to life under the sheet. Electric snow. The sheet glowed. I got up and yanked the plug from the wall. Static continued. 10 seconds. Then it died. 10:22. Another knock. The woman's voice. Softer. Pleading. Please, he's dangerous. Let us in before it's too late. Matthew made a small sound like something inside him had pinched. He pressed his palms to his ears. Tears tracked through the perpetual pallor on his cheeks. Don't, he whispered. That's not her. I wanted to believe she was real. That I wasn't holding a child hostage in fear because of an email from strangers. But the way the voice hit the door flat, bright, wrong made my stomach fold. I didn't open it. At 11 o'clock, the whispering started. Not outside. Upstairs. It threaded down the staircase like a ribbon. Words too soft to catch. Syllables like marbles in a jar. I'll be right back, I said to Matthew. Stay here. He didn't answer. He'd begun to hum. It wasn't a tune. I crept up the stairs, phone light a trembling cone. The whispering grew clearer, then retreated like it was playing with me. I reached Matthew's door. It was cracked open, the way I'd left it hours ago. I'd pushed it with one finger. Moonlight pooled on the bed like a sheet of water. There was a boy sitting on it, cross-legged, face tilted down, hair the color of a paper bag, pajamas the color of rain. Matthew? I whispered. He looked up. The face was Matthew's. The eyes were almost as farther than it sounds. His lips were moving, whispering something to himself, over and over like a rosary in a language I didn't know. Then his head jerked like he'd been yanked by a hook, and his eyes snapped to mine. He smiled. It was the wrong smile. It showed teeth in a pattern I couldn't diagram with human math. I slammed the door. I ran. The real Matthew was where I'd left him on the couch, crying without sound. I sank down beside him. I didn't touch him. I didn't know what else I could do to keep him from breaking the way the house had. 11:40, the air felt damp and electric, like right before a storm trips a transformer, knocking again. Not measured this time. Pounding. 2 voices. The same. Together. Let us in. The door shuddered in its frame. Splinters kicked off the jamb. Matthew grabbed my arm and held like it was a rope over a cliff. If you let them in, he said, so softly I almost didn't catch it over the pounding. They'll take you instead. We ran for the kitchen, some feral instinct telling me the back of the house was safer. That's when I saw it. The oven door. Glossy black. The only reflective mouth left in the whole place. I saw myself. Except the me in the glass smiled when I wasn't. It raised its hand, laid it against the inside of the glass. There was a pain sound of metal flexing in heat, and a hairline crack slithered across the pane like a white vein. My reflection's lips formed a shape. I knew the shape. It was my name. I dragged Matthew into the pantry and shut the door. We huddled between a case of LaCroix and an apocalypse's worth of paper towels. I braced my back against the door and prayed to a ceiling I didn't believe in. The pounding at the front door rattled through the structure. The whispering upstairs became giggles. The oven laughed in my voice. The clock on the microwave visible through the slat in the pantry door blinked 11:59 like it had learned to play with us, and then it all stopped. A silence so sudden my ears rang with the ghost of sound. 12 o'clock. All zeros. The front door unlocked with a soft, obedient click. Natalie and Mark stepped in like hosts returning to a party they'd left to get more ice, smiling. Luz, human, you did well, Natalie said, handing me an envelope. It was thick and cold. We appreciate your adherence to the rules. What is wrong with this house? The words came out shredded. What is wrong with him? I pointed at Matthew, who stood ramrod straight beside me like a kid at attention.
He's not our son, Mark said, as if he was telling me the time.
The floor bucked under me like the house had shrugged. What? We lost Matthew years ago, Natalie said, almost kind. But things still come through. Things that look like him. Things that look like us. We can't get rid of them. We contain them. Contain. The word sat in my mouth like a penny. They each took one of Matthew's hands. He didn't resist. He didn't look at them. He looked at me. His eyes were empty bowls. You did your job, Mark said to me. You kept him from escaping. What happens now? I asked. I wasn't sure if I meant to him or to me. They didn't answer. They led him upstairs, stepped soundless on wood that had just been rocks in a river. The bedroom door closed. The house exhaled me like something it had almost swallowed. Outside, the air was a knife, and I let it cut me until I could breathe again. I didn't look back at the house. I got in my car, drove through a night that had never heard of morning, went home, and dumped the envelope on my wobbly kitchen table. $500. Crisp enough to cut. I flipped a bill. The face on it was not a president. It was me. Smiling too wide, with too many teeth. That was the moment the fear ended, and the anger began. They used me. They paid me to be bait, to be a guard, to be an accomplice. Revenge isn't a plan, it's a temperature. Mine rose until it sang in my blood. I promised myself one thing. I would never be their warden again. I would be their reckoning. I didn't sleep. Not that night, not the next. When I closed my eyes, I saw teeth in wrong places. When I opened them, my apartment mirrored me back in every dark screen. I taped paper over the TV and draped a scarf across the microwave and angled my phone, face down like I could suffocate my own portrait. I called in sick to the cafe, and the word sick felt honest for the first time. Tara came over with pho and ginger ale and a flashlight because she is not a subtle friend. She put the soup on the counter and looked around at my covered electronics. So we're doing this in a fort. You're going to tell me I'm being ridiculous. I was going to tell you you're being you. Which is, incidentally, ridiculous. I told her everything. The knocks. The wrong voices, the oven, the boy in the bed with the almost eyes. The cash with my face. She didn't look away when I cried, which made me cry harder. When I finished, she picked up her spoon, stirring broth to keep her hands moving. You're not going back there. No. Her eyes flicked to the envelope on my table. You're also not spending that money. I swallowed. It's my rent. She inhaled through her nose. We'll cover your rent. You can pay me back when you can. But you don't fund a monster with your mortgage. I nodded, because I couldn't argue with the person who brings ginger ale and flashlights. After she left, I made myself a rule. I couldn't sleep, but I could research. If rage needs a skeleton to stand, information is bone. I started with the address, 311 Hawthorne Lane, Cedar Ridge, Oregon. The county property database said the house belonged to Cedar Ridge Development Partners LLC, no human names. Taxes paid on time, hands clean. I looked for a Matthew in the county missing persons. 16 pages in, my cursor stopped. Matthew Arroyo. 8 years old when he vanished from a Cedar Ridge playground in 2016. Last seen wearing a gray hoodie with the hood up. Anyone with information, please contact. I closed my eyes. The photo on the page looked like the boy I'd watched color a dog green. But photos of children have a way of rhyming. I dug for news stories. There were 3. The first 2 were local. The initial report, the prayer vigil. The third was a picture of the boy's mother with the headline, Family moves on after years of searching. She was not Natalie. The man holding her shoulder was not Mark. Okay. Lost Matthew years ago, they'd said. That was true if you defined lost as not ours and gone. I looked for anything about 311 Hawthorne, code violations, HOA complaints. Google Street View. The last Street View was from 2 summers ago. The curtains were the same. The lawn too good. The kind of good that lawn services keep for clients who tip in cash. The HOA had a public forum because of course it did. Buried in the threads about mailbox heights and illegal basketball hoops was a complaint. 311 Hawthorne once again has contractors after hours. Last week there was a truck at 1 a.m. This is a family neighborhood. Children sleep. A contractor replied, username FixItFrank. We don't work past 6 p.m. Must be a different service. If the mirrors were gone, who put the sheets back on? If no mirrors were allowed, who taped the microwave? I wrote down names, dates, threads. I went to bed when the sun was up because I needed to feel like the world was in one piece. I dreamed of glass yawning open like a mouth. The next day I went to Cedar Ridge. I told myself I was just going to drive by. People who just drive by do not wear sneakers and a hoodie and bring a backpack with snacks, water, a phone charger, and pepper spray. People who just drive by do not text their location to a friend with "If I stop moving for 10 minutes, call the police." I parked on a public street one cul-de-sac over and walked like I belonged to a dog I didn't have. The mid-morning light washed everything. The house looked smaller in daylight. That's the lie of the sun. It makes even nightmares look manageable. Mrs. Next Door watered her hydrangeas with the concentration of a surgeon. She watched me the way neighborhood watchers practice. I waved. She didn't wave back. She wasn't hostile, she was scared. I made a loop pretending to admire a maple tree. When I came back around, a mail truck was easing up the street, stopping at boxes like a metronome. The mailman was older, with a face that has learned 100 names and the routes they live on. "Nice day," I said. "Overly bright, the way people do when they have questions and need to look less like questions. Until it rains," he said. Oregon humor is weather humor. He slid mail into 309, then 311. The envelope on top was thick, made of the kind of paper invoices use when they don't want to be ignored. Recipient, Cedar Ridge Development Partners LLC. "You do this street a lot?" I asked. "Every weekday for 6 years," he said. He looked at me the way adults look at other adults when both of them are pretending not to notice what they've noticed. "You visiting someone?" "I babysat at the end of the street," I said. "Once. Wanted to make sure I remembered the route in daylight." "I'm a worrier." I smiled in a way that said, "Trust me if you'd never met a liar." He nodded. A pause, then, "They don't get much mail with names attached." "New owners?" "Could be," he said. "Could be long-term renters." The contractor trucks say Cedar Ridge DP on the receipts sometimes. I'm not supposed to notice, but I'm old and noticing is what my job's for. "Do they have a kid?" I ask, casual with a pulse behind it. He slid letters in, hands still. "Not that I ever see." Another pause. "You didn't hear that from me." I thanked him with a smile that tried to be lighter than it was and walked on as if I had somewhere else to be. The street held its breath while I passed. Houses do that when something on them is wrong. They go quiet so you can hear the wrong louder. I was almost at the corner when a thin voice called, "Miss?" I turned. An older woman stood at the base of a driveway across from 311. She wore a sweater despite the sun and sandals that had seen more than one summer. Her face had the kind of lines that are written by both laughter and grief. "I'm not selling anything," I said, "because people think you are when you look like I do. Young enough to need it, tired enough to try." "I know," she said. "You're the first person I've seen walk down this cul-de-sac this slowly since I moved here." She squinted at me like I might rearrange myself into someone she recognized. "You're not from 311. "No," I said. "I babysat there." Her mouth creased. "You're not going back, are you?" "No." "Good." Her eyes flicked toward the house like she was checking if it could hear. "Don't stand in front of their door too long. It looks like it invites you." "It only invites you in the way pits invite feet." "What do you mean?" I asked, my chest getting tight. She glanced around. Neighborhood empty except for a gardener wrestling a hose and a crow walking like it owned the good air. "You want iced tea?" It's how spies in movies offer protection. It's how Southern grandmothers offer love. I followed her inside because my options were be alone with thoughts or be with someone else's. Her living room had photos of grandchildren, and the smell of lemons that aren't in a cleaning product. She handed me a glass of tea so sweet it could betray you, sat and said, "My name's Delphi." "Like the oracle," I said, before I could stop my mouth. She smiled a little. "Like the car, if you ask my husband." He named everything after something that needed fixing. We sat with the kind of silence that has room. "I hear things," she said finally. "My ears are old, but the bones work." She touched the side of her face. 2 summers ago, in the middle of the night, I heard someone banging on 311's door and forgotten its key. A man's voice. No words, just trying to open wood with sound. Her eyes dropped to her hands, folded perfectly in her lap. No lights went on. Nobody answered. The banging stopped. I went back to bed and told my husband in the morning. He said it was a dream. He says it was because he's gone now and the tent sticks. She looked at me. Last fall, I saw a boy standing in their upstairs window. His face was so still I thought it was a doll. Then his mouth opened and he screamed without sound. The glass was closed. The sound didn't come through. She swallowed. I called the police. They came. They knocked politely. They left. I felt the strangest gratitude that my fear could sit on a couch with company. Why don't you move? I asked. She pondered that like there might be more answers than the obvious. Because I love my lemon tree. Because the bus line is close and my knees are old. Because I am stubborn and I don't like losing to something I can't name. We looked at each other. She nodded like she'd just given me a blessing. You should go now. You've been on the street too long. I left by the back door so the house across from hers didn't get another chance to look at me. Back home, my apartment felt like a patient I needed to monitor. I took down one scarf, then put it back up because my reflection startled me. I googled mirror folklore and fell into a pit of cultures that covered mirrors when the dead were in the room, and teenagers who played games with queens in bathrooms, and Victorian rituals to keep your soul from slipping into the glass where it could be trapped like a fly in amber. Superstition is just consensus dressed up. I wasn't looking for magic though. I was looking for leverage. Leverage number 1, the HOA thread. Contractors at 1 a.m. Leverage number 2, the mailman's, no names, just LLC. Leverage number 3, missing child Matthew Arroyo, not the property's supposed son. Leverage number 4, eyewitness neighbor reports, Delphi, of silent screaming. People teach you how to beat them by what they fear. They feared mirrors. They feared doors opening at the wrong times. They feared something taking what they believe belongs to them. I wrote down a plan that wasn't a plan yet, just a need taking shape like condensation on glass. I needed evidence that could live without me. I needed witnesses who couldn't be coached by my shaking voice. I needed a reason for the police to do more than knock politely. And I needed to keep a boy safe without letting him become something that ate people's faces and spit them back out. At 2 a.m. my email pinged. We are looking for a sitter again this Friday, 7 midnight. Are you available? Same rate, same rules. I stared at it until the words blurred. The anger that had been heating like water hit boil. Yes. My cursor hovered. I added, I'll need $600 this time. And one more rule, keep the oven off. I hit send before I could soften. The reply came before my breath returned to an even pace. Agreed. See you at 7. I didn't wash my face. I needed my anger salt on my skin to carry me to the morning. Revenge, when it's just a heat, burns everything. Revenge, when you cool it, carves. I made a shopping list. To full-length cheap mirrors from a discount store that thinks shatterproof is a suggestion. A roll of safety film and a box of painter's tape. A body cam small enough to clip to a bra strap. 2 battery packs the size of anxiety. A dash cam because the cloud doesn't care if you scream. It cares if you upload. 1 wireless mic with a receiver I could tuck into my sock. A set of door wedges. A cheap burner phone. Stick-on motion sensors that ping a paired phone. A printed sheet with the Oregon statutes for child endangerment, unlawful restraint, and mandatory reporting highlighted. And, because I am my mother's daughter, a Ziploc bag with 4 granola bars and a tiny first aid kit with cartoon band-aids. Tara watched me load items into a cart like I was playing a game in a store where the prize is survival. You're not going alone, she said. I need you on the street, I said. Park around the corner. If my location stops moving, you call 911 and say, I am witnessing an active child endangerment case at 311 Hawthorne. I have live video proof being uploaded to the cloud. Then you text the number I gave you. That's the DHS on-call desk. Use the phrase immediate welfare check. You sound like you practiced that. I did, in the shower, with my hair half washed. She put a hand on my cart to stop it from rolling forward. I know you want to be Joan of Arc. She got burned. I want to be a paralegal with a camera, I said. Joan had a sword. I have a file folder. She smiled and her eyes watered, and I loved her so much it almost knocked me off my plan. Text me every 15 minutes, she said, or I'm coming through the window. I'm putting motion sensors on the windows, I said. Then I'll go through the wall. I bought a pack of white t-shirts and a plain baseball cap to look boring. I tied my hair in a low bun like I was applying for a job as a shadow. I spent Thursday night turning my little Honda into a newsroom. Dashcam aimed at the driveway, bodycam syncing to the burner phone. The wireless mic spiking levels when I whispered test into the air. I taped a mirror, safety filmed it, and learned the sound of tape being peeled is a kind of mercy. I emailed myself a document with the subject line, "If I go missing." It had dates, addresses, and a link to a cloud folder that would eat video like it was starved and call it evidence. At noon on Friday, I called DHS. I explained in the flattest voice I could that I had reason to believe a child was being kept in conditions that suggested neglect and psychological abuse at 311 Hawthorne. I used the phrases that force a bureaucratic muscle to flex. Immediate risk, visible injuries, child in distress, neighbors report screaming. I gave them my name. I gave them the on-call desk number Tara would call if I couldn't. They told me to file online. I did. Then I called again and said I'd already filed. A person whose voice had the weight of someone who's seen too much and been paid too little said, "We'll try to get someone out there tonight." "We're short-staffed. Try?" I said, and worked to keep my anger from spilling through the phone and onto someone who didn't deserve it. "We'll do what we can," they said. Which is government for yes, but... I called the Cedar Ridge Police non-emergency line and asked, hypothetically, what constituted probable cause for a welfare check when a neighbor heard screaming and saw a child in an upstairs window with no response from the homeowners. The woman on the phone told me they take those seriously. I asked if a live stream could count as in plain sight. She said, if an officer can see it from the doorway and it suggests immediate danger, yes. The law loves doors. Opening one is a ceremony. I texted Delphi. I'd gotten her number yesterday when she wrote it on the back of a recipe card for lemon bars. I'm going back tonight. I'll have police and DHS alerted. If you hear anything, will you step outside so you count as a second witness? Delphi. I will sit on my porch with my lemon tea and my stubbornness. Be careful of the oven. I put the printed statutes in a folder. I slid the folder into my bag. I looked at my face in my phone by accident and flinched so hard the phone slipped, hit the floor, and cracked. It felt on brand. At 6:35 p.m., I parked a street over again. Tara texted a selfie from her car, eyes fierce, jaw set like she could chew through wood. Tara, you're not alone in there, even when you are. If I say call for a check, call? Tara, if you say call, I'm already on the phone before the L hits the air. I stared at 311 when I rounded the cul-de-sac's bend. The curtains breathed with the air conditioner's exhale. A mylar balloon in the yard from no one's birthday tugged at its cord like it was trying to escape gravity's expectations. The door opened before I knocked. The house knew my shape. Right on time, Natalie said. She wore the same cardigan. Mark wore the same polo. Some people have uniforms. Some enact them. Before you go, I said, holding up a hand. Keys on the table. If there's an emergency, I'm not waiting 5 minutes for you to drive back. That won't be necessary, Mark said, smile patient and polished. It is, I said, just as patient, not polished at all. It's in my contract. We don't have a contract, Natalie said lightly. I do, I said, and held up my phone like a priest holds up a book. This is recorded. A beat. They put the keys on the entry table. The clink felt like a small bell rung at the beginning of a ritual. Same rules, Mark said. No mirrors. No opening the door. I brought my own snacks, I said, and smiled like a kid who does what she's told until the telling turns. Good, Natalie said. We'll be back at midnight. And the oven stays off, I said. Her smile thinned. Of course. They left. The lock clicked. I turned the deadbolt myself like I wanted to feel the power pass through my hand. I went straight upstairs. The hallway felt the way hallways do when they've learned to hold different temperatures on different days. I paused at Matthew's door. I didn't knock. I opened. He was on the bed, cross-legged. As if I'd frozen time and unpaused it. Hi, I said. It's Jenna again. His eyes found me like they'd been looking for a fixed point to hang on. Do you know which ones are real? He asked. We're going to find out, I said. He blinked, as if that was a strange answer and he had to file it. I held up the coloring book from last time. You want to draw downstairs again? I asked. He slid off the bed and followed me. He didn't ask for my hand. I didn't offer. Some rituals you honor because names matter. In the kitchen, I placed one of the cheap full-length mirrors on the floor with the reflective side down and taped the edges like an art project. I put the second behind the couch, face to the wall, and taped it too. I did not give the house a mouth until I had my hand on its jaw. I set motion sensors at the back door and the bottom of the stairs, tiny white squares that would ping my burner phone with a sound like a bell being lightly touched. I slid door wedges into place at the front door and the door that led to the garage. I eased the keys off the entry table and put them in my pocket. All of it recorded by the body cam, the dash cam, and the backup I duct taped under the coffee table like a teenager hiding something from a parent. Do you play games? I asked Matthew. He tilted his head. It's a game where we draw people and see if they look the same in pictures as they do in person, I said. I draw you. You draw me. He considered this like he didn't get asked to play often. Flatly, he said, okay, we drew. My drawing of him looked like a mugshot by a distracted artist. His drawing of me had no mouth. He looked at it, then at my face, then back at the drawing, as if noticing he'd done something, and was trying to map how it happened. At 8:28, my burner phone pinged motion at the back door. A shadow crossed the narrow window like a cloud that had learned to walk. I texted Tara one word, Belle. She replied with a location pin from around the corner. She was close enough to sprint, far enough to lie if asked. At 8:30 the first knock came. 3 raps that vibrated the door wedge, traveling through wood and rubber into my knee on the floor. Matthew flinched. He looked at me wide and flat at once. You can be 2 things at once when you've been more than one thing too many times. A man's voice, through wood. It's us, we forgot something. I stood where I could be seen through the peephole and not the window. I said loudly, I have the keys. What do you need? A pause. Then the voice said, we need to come in. Why? I asked. I pulled the rental agent brightness over my tone like saran wrap. Silence. Not the kind that means no answer. The kind that means no available file. You can tell me and I'll bring it outside, I said. We need to come in, the voice repeated. Like menu options. Sorry, I said sweet. Company policy. Behind me, Matthew said quietly, that's not them. I didn't respond. The body cam caught the words. The house for once did not echo them. The knocking stopped. At 9:12, the upstairs motion sensor pinged, even though I hadn't put one there. It startled me enough that I swore, then remembered I had a mic on and swore softer for the record. I texted Tara, upstairs, cops on alert. I went up with Matthew at my heel because there are times you keep a child behind you to protect him, and there are times you keep him in front of you to make sure he doesn't vanish like steam. The whispered voices started in the hall before I reached his door. Not word sounds shaped like words that someone had learned phonetically. 2 voices trying out human. I opened the door a crack. The bed was empty. A shape stood in the corner where the moonlight didn't fall. It was the height of a boy. It had the density of something that wasn't used to weight. My eyes tried to adjust to a thing that didn't want to be seen the way things are. The shape cocked its head. I closed the door and leaned my forehead against the wood like I might be able to press through into a world where doors mean what we think they do. I brought Matthew downstairs. I put him on the couch with the coloring book and a granola bar. He didn't open it. He held it like a small brick. Do your parents ever eat dinner? I asked. He made a noise that could have been a laugh if you cut it in half. They don't. A beat. They're not hungry like people are. The oven sat with its dark mouth closed. I taped an X across its glass and felt like a child pretending to be an adult. Sometimes you pretend in the direction of truth. That counts. 10:18. A new knock. The cadence of the woman's voice. Please, it pleaded. He's dangerous. Let us in. Before it's too late. I looked at the peephole. Natalie's face peered back at me. The angle exaggerated her features like a fisheye lens. Her eyes were wet. Her mouth trembled. An Oscar performance at a locked door. Too late for what? I asked. She blinked. The answer in her file must have been too far back. We need to come in. Why is he dangerous? I asked. Silence. The mouth held its shape of grief, the eyes trying to water, the script stuck under a seat she couldn't reach. I said louder, I'm contacting the police. The head tilted, the weeping stopped like a faucet. Don't do that, she said. It was the man's voice now coming from the woman's mouth. Why not? I asked. The mic in my sock hummed with my pulse. Because they'll let him out. It took me a second to realize who him was. Then I looked at the oven and wanted to throw up the granola bar I hadn't eaten. I backed away. I took out my folder and laid it on the counter as if paper could shield us from glass. 10:35. My burner phone pinged. A number I didn't know. A text. Are you at 311 tonight? I typed. Who is this, Sam? You don't know me. You babysat there last week. I got your email from a friend who saw your post in the neighborhood group. What post? If anyone else has had a weird experience at 311 Hawthorne, please DM me. I hadn't made a post. I hadn't yet. What happened to you? I typed. I quit at 10. Kid said he was going to open the glass. TV turned on. Unplugged. Parents paid me anyway and said I was better than most. Do you know anyone who stayed? Silence for a full minute. Then, my friend Kyle stayed. He didn't answer my texts for a week. When he did, he said, not me. I swallowed, throat dry. Do you still have his number? Yes. Send it. A call came in before the number arrived. Tara. Say it's a check, I answered. It's a check, she said. DHS texted. They can be there at 11:55 with a police escort. They'll call you when they're 5 minutes out. Do not open the door until they are there. I won't, I said, and felt the house listening. Thank you. Come out alive, she said, and hung up because some love is efficient. I looked at the oven. I looked at the front door. I looked at Matthew, who had drawn another picture of me with no mouth. Can I ask you a question? I said. He nodded, as if permission had to be spoken to be real. If there are copies, I said carefully, how do you tell which ones are real? He thought longer than children are supposed to and less than philosophers do. The real ones breathe wrong when they lie. The copies breathe wrong when they tell the truth. A shiver walked my spine the way a person walks a dog too fast. Okay, I said. Okay, I pulled the second mirror from behind the couch. I laid it face up this time. I taped a rectangle of paper in the center like a muzzle with a slit cut where a mouth would be. I set it against the entry wall, angled so the door would see itself if it opened. Monsters hate their own faces is a folk belief. People do too. I texted Delphi, welfare check at 11:55. If you can, be on the porch. Delphi, I will be sitting with my tea at 11:50 like a sunrise. I will be the neighbor they don't want me to be. 11:32. Footsteps upstairs. Running. Then 2 bodies. Then 3. A chorus of steps that didn't care about carpets. The overhead light in the hallway flickered like a failing memory. 11:41. The knocking started again. Louder than before. Rage has a volume. Let us in. From both voices, braided, taught to harmonize in one note. Command. Call for a check, I texted Tara. On it, she replied. I stood in front of the door with my folder in hand, my head up, my mouth ready to make a shape that looked like authority. Behind me, Matthew took my free hand without asking. His palm was cool and dry, like the first time I shook Natalie's. 11:50. My phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. This is child welfare, a woman said, her voice trained to be the steady thing in a storm. We're 2 minutes away with Cedar Ridge PD. Thank you, I said, and the thanks had weight. Behind me, the oven made a sound like ice cracking on a lake. I looked. The X of tape bowed, the glass flexing with something that wanted out. Do not open the door, the woman said, firm. We will announce ourselves. Copy, I said, because I wanted to speak cop in case cop saved me quicker. The house went quiet enough to hear my own blood. 11:53. Red and blue light washed across the blinds like a tide that knew how to find every shore. A loud knock. Cedar Ridge PD. Child welfare. Open up. I inhaled. The door wedges were in. The house didn't want another knock that wasn't its own. Let us in, the braided voices shrieked, a sound like a chorus taught by a fire alarm. I looked at the mirror propped by the entry wall. In its rectangle of view, the door looked like a mouth that could be made to open. I removed the wedge. I turned the deadbolt. I opened the door to the only faces that mattered tonight. A woman in a windbreaker with DHS on the chest and two officers whose eyes had learned to see things. They never tell their children. I'm Jenna, I said, breath so shallow it lived in the hollow above my collarbone. He's inside. I pointed at Matthew, who clung to my hand like he'd built a life there. And there are... Something slammed the door from the inside, from behind me. The door hit the mirror. Glass spider webbed. Behind me, the oven laughed in my voice. And something in the house that had felt contained all night decided it was done being held. The door hit the mirror, and the mirror bloomed with cracks like frost racing across a pond. Behind me, the oven laughed in my voice, high and bright and wrong. Jenna. The DHS worker stepped forward, one palm out, eyes already scanning. Child, exits, hazards. The name on her badge read P. Larkin. Two officers flanked her, SGT Ramirez and Officer Cho, their body cams blinking the little red LEDs that mean someone else is finally going to remember this with you. I'm here, I said, voice like a wire. He's there. I nodded toward Matthew, who gripped my fingers hard enough to leave ghost crescents. Another slam from inside the inside of the closed front door like a shoulder driving wood. Ramirez planted his boot against the threshold. Cho swept in with that sidestep police do when they want to see every wall at once. Cedar Ridge Police, Cho called, clear as a bell. Announce yourselves. Silence. Then, from the kitchen, a hairline crack crying across the oven glass. Larkin's eyes found what mine feared. What is that? Don't know, I said. But the oven stays taped. Their rule. Whose rule? She asked. The couple who hired me. Where are they? Out. Back at midnight. They told me something moved on the stair. Not a person. A suggestion. Like movement you see in peripheral vision that evaporates when you look. Ramirez clocked it too. His head turned a fraction. His hand gentled toward his holster but stayed there. A promise and a threat. Delphi's porch light popped on across the street. Her silhouette appeared with a mug lemon tea and stubbornness. Exactly where she said she'd be. The neighborhood had witnesses now. The house hated that. Sweetheart? Larkin crouched to Matthew's height. She kept one hand out and one near her radio. A mother and a professional in the same body. My name is Paula. I'm here to make sure you're safe. Is it okay if I sit with you? He looked at me. I squeezed once. He nodded once. Paula eased beside him on the couch, leaving space. Do you live here? She asked, gentle. No, he said. It was such a simple no that Ramirez's chin lifted like a dog scenting something finally named. Who do you live with? Paula asked. He glanced at the ceiling. Copies, he said. Paula's eyes flicked to me. She did not say what, because she didn't need to. She said, Can we go outside for a minute? The motion sensor chimed a light ping from the back door. Someone was there. Or something that knew where the house let light in. Out, Ramirez said. Now. He opened the door himself, wide enough for 3 bodies. The heat of 2 patrol cars spilled across the entry, red, blue, washing our faces like a second pulse. We moved. Matthew's palm in mine, Paula's hand light against his back. Cho trailing, Ramirez last, a human wedge between us and whatever the house wanted. We were 3 feet on the porch when a sedan slid to the curb at the far end of the cul-de-sac. Its headlights clicked off. The engine kept humming. The clock on my phone read 11:58. Mark and Natalie stepped out. Same polo, same cardigan, same smiles like masks you can buy in 2 sizes. They didn't look at the police cars. They looked at the door, like worshippers late to a service. Ma'am, sir, Ramirez said, voice command smooth. Please remain at the car. They kept walking. Natalie's smile widened when she saw me. We're right on time, she said, as if we'd planned a surprise party. Paula's tone went clipped and official. Are you the legal guardians? Yes, Mark said. No, Matthew whispered, so soft only my mic picked it up. Names for the record. Paula asked, already noting the badge numbers on the officer's chest, the date and time, the phase of the moon if it mattered. Mark, he said. Natalie, last names? A half-second hitch. Parker, Mark supplied. Paula didn't blink. Identification? We left it inside, Natalie said smoothly. We'll just step in and... No, you won't, Ramirez said, and the way he planted his boot on that threshold made me want to cry with relief. State ID. Now. From the car. Or you are detained until we establish guardianship. Natalie's smile flickered like a failing bulb. Officer, this child is ours. This is harassment. Paula's chin angled toward the house. Tell me about the mirrors, she said. Why are all reflective surfaces removed or covered? It's a family belief, Natalie said breezily. We limit vanity. Why did you instruct a babysitter not to allow the child to look in a mirror? Natalie's mouth opened to do the lie, and Mark, bless his brittle soul, spoke first. Containment, he said crisply. He doesn't do well with glass. Ramirez's shoulder mic crackled softly. Body cam, my brain chanted. Say it into the body cam. In your own words, Paula said, slow and clear. You used the word containment. Yes, Mark said. We remove mirrors, cover screens, keep doors shut. It's safer. For who? Paula asked. Mark's smile flattened. All of us. Every cop knows the moment a talk shifts from explain to admit. We all breathed that pivot. Do you have birth certificate or guardianship paperwork? Paula asked. In the house, Natalie insisted, softer now. Let us go get it and we'll... No one is entering this house until we confirm the child's safety, Paula said. She touched her radio. Dispatch DHS 12 to 7 requesting additional unit for emergency removal. One minor? Potential unlawful restraint, negligence, psychological abuse. Copy? Copy? Dispatch crackled. Natalie to me in a whisper like a mosquito. You opened the door. Not for you, I said. Not ever again. Her eyes flashed too wide, the way a mask tears when your face under it is the wrong size. You paid me to be bait, I said louder because the street needed to hear it. You hired me to contain him. Ramirez's body cam blinked. Mine hummed at my collarbone. Tara's car idled one street over. Delphi shifted on her porch, deliberate, a witness turning her head to give the camera her good side. Matthew, Paula said, keeping her eyes on the couple, who do you call when you're scared? The boy's mouth made a shape like nobody, and then he said, the glass. How do you feel right now? She asked. Like the house is breathing, he said. Do you feel safe with these adults? He looked at me. He looked at them. He said no. Ramirez didn't need more. Step back, he ordered the couple, hands visible. You're detained while child welfare conducts an emergency removal. Natalie smiled again, but this time it wavered mid-face, like she couldn't remember how many teeth humans show. You don't know what you're doing, she said, as if we were children playing with matches. You'll let it out. She didn't say him this time. She said it. What is it? Paula asked, clinical curiosity over barbed wire. Silence. And then the house itself answered. A shriek, metal and glass and voice in one ripped from the kitchen. The oven door spider-webbed fully and buckled, the X of tape groaning, holding, then thinning like candy pulled too far. A cold air washed over us from inside the house, and I watched the hair lift on Ramirez's arm because there are details your brain collects, even when it's running for the car. Everyone back, he said, stepping us off the porch. Cho, call fire, tell them the appliance glass blew. You. He pointed at me without looking. Stay with DHS and the child. I held Matthew. He held me. We watched the house breathe. Why do you keep him? I asked Natalie softly, so only the four of us could hear. Me, Paula, the two who wore a pair of names. Why not give him to the state and go worship your empty rooms? Her smile fell off. The face under it was exhausted and mean. Because he attracts the others, she hissed. Without him, they come through everything. With him, we keep them here. It clicked. It all clicked. The house wasn't a home. It was a hub. The kid wasn't their ward. He was a lightning rod. You built an altar, I whispered. And you nailed a boy to it. Something in her eyes flared shame, or triumph, or the twitch of a person who realizes the parable they like is about them. You have the right to remain silent, Ramirez began, voice crisp, and even if it wasn't an arrest yet, the words wrapped around the porch like a spell. I want a lawyer, Mark said. Quick, perfect. Great, I said. Get one we can depose, Jenna, Paula warned gently. I swallowed my triumph back into preparation. Winning is not gloating. It is finishing. An engine, a ladder, a set of faces calculating the physics of a house that isn't afire yet. They peered in, saw the fractures, saw the tape sheets over a TV and a microwave. DHS finished her removal. Paula asked me to state my full name and relationship to the child. I said Jenna Baxter. I said babysitter. She asked for my IDs. I handed over two. She asked if I had documentation of instructions from the couple. I emailed her the chain. She asked if I had video. I shared a link that began downloading into a state server that doesn't care if you believe in ghosts. Only if people are hurting kids. By 12:32 a.m., Matthew was in the back of a child welfare car with Paula beside him. She handed him a fleece blanket the color of a safe sky. He held it like he was considering whether softness is a thing you can trust. Where are you taking him? I asked. Temporary placement tonight, she said. We have an emergency foster. Tomorrow we start with identifying his legal status. I nodded. He mentioned a name, Matthew Arroyo. Her eyebrows moved a millimeter. We will check missing persons, she said, not unkind. The government does not promise. It files. Cho stood with Natalie and Mark by their car. Mark's jaw was locked. Natalie's smile looked like someone had drawn it on in marker, and the sweat had begun to smear it. Ramirez leaned on the porch post, writing in his notebook without looking at the words. The way people write when they've already memorized this story. Do you want an escort home? He asked me. I wanted a new brain. I wanted my old life, the one where the scariest thing at night was a rent notice. I have a friend around the corner, I said. She won't let me breathe alone. He nodded. You did the right thing, he said. You did it the right way. It felt like absolution. It felt like a warning. It felt like both, and that's honesty. I caught Delphi's eye across the street. She lifted her cup. I lifted my hand. Two women on porches in the dark, saying we were here to each other. I walked to Tara's car and got in and put my forehead on the steering wheel, and was shaking so hard the car thought we were tapping the gas. She put her palm on the back of my head like my mother used to do when fever had me. Breathe, she said. In, out, we did it. It's not over, but we did the first thing. I want the last thing, I said, voice ruined. I want them to understand the cost of what they did. Oh, they will, she said, with a smile that would have scared me if it weren't my reflected back. That's your talent. You don't let people forget. 3 weeks later. Revenge, properly done, is paperwork that bites. Here's what paper did. DHS petitioned for emergency custody. Their investigator Paula filed an affidavit citing immediate risk, psychological abuse, environmental neglect, and inability to provide proof of guardianship. The judge read it at 9:14 a.m. and signed at 9:16. Pens can be swords when they're wielded by a person with a badge and a conscience. Cedar Ridge PD executed a search warrant. Grounds, welfare check observations, body cam statements, corroborating witness accounts, Delphi Me, plus unusual environmental modifications, the mirrors. They found contracts, receipts, and something better. A little gray file cabinet in the garage office with invoices from a company called Verity Containment Services, LLC, payable to Cedar Ridge Development Partners, LLC. The service rendered line items read like nightmares written by an accountant. Mirror removal, screen coverage, glass ceiling, overnight monitor rotations. Signatures, M. Calloway and N. Reed, not Parker. Thoya and Public Records. With Paula's guidance, I requested the permit history from the county. Non-permitted structural alterations. Bathroom mirrors removed that were required by code. Temporary fixtures added to reduce reflective surfaces, and a fire safety citation from 2 months prior unaddressed. The complaints. I printed every thread. The midnight trucks, I heard banging, there was a boy in the window. Recent, specific, unanswered. When you stack enough ignored data, it becomes a picture, and the DA likes pictures. The missing Matthew. DHS and CPD cross-checked Matthew Arroyo. DNA wasn't immediate, but it was underway. Paula took a ring from the boy and got a swab. The state made calls to a woman whose eyes had been empty since 2016. Her hands shook when she answered the phone. She said the word Matthew like a prayer and a question both. Press. I didn't want tabloids. I wanted truth with citations. We went to a local investigative reporter, Dana Livy, at the Willamette Ledger, who had a ledger of her own. City Hall, dirty contractors, and a series on Shell LLCs in suburbia. We gave her the invoice scans, the emails, the body cam transcript. Ramirez, God bless his note-taking soul, had marked the containment quote in his report. She cross-checked the LLC registration. The registered agent was a mail drop. But the founders, if you look 2 shells back, were Mark Calloway and Natalie Reed. The money. A county prosecutor with a talent for taxes found consulting fees flowing from Cedar Ridge Development. Partners to a third-party safety consultant, Calloway and Reed partners. Same people, different hats. It stank of self-dealing. The DA's nose twitched. The house. The fire inspector condemned the oven and flagged the kitchen as unsafe. Code enforcement cited the property for multiple violations, including hazardous modifications, unsecured electrical, and impeding egress. The HOA finally found a backbone and fined them for 27 separate violations. Paper cuts can bleed out bank accounts. Paula kept me updated as much as the law allowed. I learned to read the careful phrases, the child is adjusting. There are indications of significant trauma. We are pursuing reunification contingent on identification. I learned to love contingent like a child loves a stuffed animal. It meant maybe. It meant not yet no. Dana's piece ran on a Wednesday. The Mirror House, LLCs, a missing boy, and a suburban containment scheme. She wrote like a scalpel. No gore, just cuts exactly where they needed to be. She quoted Ramirez's report. Subjects stated they contain child by removing reflective surfaces, instructing caretakers to avoid mirrors and not open door regardless of who is outside. She quoted Paula, in 20 years I've never seen a house modified to erase a child's reflection. She quoted Delphi, I heard screaming without sound. She quoted me, they paid me to be a warden. I decided to be a witness. The day after it ran, Verity Containment Services website went offline. The day after that, an attorney in a suit that cost more than my car filed motions with words like defamation and religious discrimination and privacy. He lasted 3 days before the DA filed child endangerment, criminal mistreatment, custodial interference, and fraud. Religious discrimination doesn't cover nailing a boy to an invisible cross. Mark and Natalie Calloway and Reed were arrested in a grocery store parking lot at 3:46 p.m. They did not smile in the booking photos because their faces hadn't practiced that expression yet. I stood on the courthouse steps the day of the arraignment because I am dramatic and because sometimes standing is the only thing left to do. Ramirez saw me and tipped his head like a human being saying hey. Paula saw me and touched her chest over her badge, over her heart. Dana saw me and asked, anything you want to say on the record? I shook my head. Just get his name right when you can, I said. Say it out loud. She nodded. We will. When I got home that afternoon, there was a letter under my door. No return address. Plain white paper that smelled faintly of bleach. Stop, it said, in block letters as neat as a school worksheet. Or we open the glass. I carried it to my kitchen table. I laid it down like a specimen. I took a picture from 3 angles. Fingerprints visible only if I wanted to imagine I was the kind of person who could dust for prints with flour. I slid the letter into a clear sleeve, labeled it, and put it in a binder. The tab read retaliation. If they wanted to play paperwork, I would play harder. I am a barista. We survive on systems. When Tara came over that night, I had a pot of chili on the stove and a mirror on the wall above my table. You left one uncovered, she said. Eyes on the silver rectangle reflecting a room that had learned how to be safe. I'm done living under a sheet, I said. If something wants to wear my face, it has to do it in the open. She nodded. You're terrifying when you grow up. Good, I said. Maybe the right people will be scared. The hearing courtrooms smell like books and threat. The judge in State v. Calloway and Reed had the face of a person who can spend 20 minutes reading a parking ordinance and make a person cry by saying granted. The DA laid it out simple. Exhibit A, body cam footage mark. We remove mirrors, we contain him. Exhibit B, Paula's removal affidavit. The child stated he does not live with these adults and does not feel safe. Exhibit C, invoices linking LLC to LLC, cash to cash. Exhibit D, HOA complaints. Exhibit E, photos of a house stripped of reflection like a patient stripped of privacy. Exhibit F, a ledger line labeled overnight monitor, names redacted. The defense tried to say religion. The judge asked, which religion? The lawyer said, sincerely held beliefs. The judge said, sincerely holding a wrong belief does not make it legal. The gallery hummed. Then Paula called me. State your name, she said. Jenna Baxter. She asked how we met. I told them about the Craigslist ad without saying Craigslist. The court prefers nouns that can be served. I recited the line that started the migraine in my life. Don't let him look into mirrors. Don't answer the door if someone knocks and claims to be us. I said how I went once. How I went again. How I recorded the containment and how I called DHS and how the porch lights turned on up and down the block like a protest. And why? She asked finally. Did you go back the second time? I didn't look at the defense. I looked at Paula because she was the only person in that room I wanted the answer to live in. Because they used me, I said. And because when someone uses you once, they think they get to again. And because I don't do revenge with bats, I do it with records. The judge didn't smile. Judges don't, but there was a softening. A human acknowledging another human in a room. Where we all pretend we aren't. The ruling on custody wasn't final, those take months, but the emergency order became a temporary protective order. Renewable. Mark and Natalie were no contact ordered with the boy and barred from the residence except to retrieve belongings with a police escort. The court set bail with conditions. GPS, surrender of passports. No, containment work. The judge used air quotes and everything. The DA made their teeth visible without opening their mouth. We will be pursuing additional charges pending the outcome of ongoing investigations, including potential connections to other properties managed by the defendants' LLCs. There were other properties, of course there were. My revenge grew like a tree, one trunk, many branches. Dana ran a follow-up. Verity Containment's hidden network. 8 properties. 0 children registered at schools. All mirrors removed. In Omaha, in Fresno, in a suburb of Tampa where the cul-de-sacs curve like cursive. The reporter in each city had a neighbor like Delphi who had heard banging. A mailman who had noticed envelopes addressed to companies instead of people. A sitter who had walked out at 10 and cashed $300 that felt like blood. The Attorney General called it a pattern of abuse under color of belief. The FBI sniffed fraud. The IRS sniffed tax evasion. Everyone brought their favorite leash. My revenge didn't need to bite. It needed to let the right dogs off. The boy, if you're waiting for a miracle, this is where I disappoint you. It wasn't solved in a week with a hug and a paternity test. It was work. It was bone deep. It was slow. DHS used the ring, the swab, the missing person DNA. Months turned like pages in a book I wanted to skip to the last chapter of.